Welcome to the new episode of Tales from Tatooine podcast. I'm Jacob.
I'm Fish.
And we have a very complicated podcast today about a very complicated and mysterious character, Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yes.
Probably the most mysterious character.
Very little information.
So little. And there's a lot of mysterious characters. You have DJ, Benicio del Toro's character.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which we'll get into in some of the news information. We have Rey's parentage, big mystery. We have what Luke has been up to, big mystery. But not quite like Snoke.
This is the biggest mystery by far.
Snoke is definitely not only the one we know the least about, but his character and who he is probably going to play a much bigger part than almost anything else.
Yeah.
And we think we have a pretty interesting theory about who he is.
It's a pretty good one.
It's a combination of a lot of ideas about who he is, but overall, we believe it fits well into the storytelling of Star Wars, the wow factor, lots of pluses. But as first, we always like to talk about the news for the week. It's been a pretty slow news week, but here's this week's news. It's been a relatively slow news week this week, and I mean, I can't be too surprised considering last week was like bombshell city with the new trilogy and the show, and we're getting so close. We're just under 3 weeks out from The Last Jedi, which is so exciting.
I can taste it.
Oh, of course, we'll be going opening night, in which case we'll be bringing a live stream right after our viewing.
Immediately after.
Just to kind of give us our initial thoughts before we really have time to process the story, which we will rack over pretty much constantly up until the video we doing our run of the story. But we did get some interesting stuff this week. EW, Entertainment Weekly, is releasing their last of the Last Jedi covers. 4 covers, which look amazing.
Oh, so good.
Oh, they look...
We should have all of them.
We need to frame them.
Framed.
It's like those Vanity Fair ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Top notch. Which I guess we shouldn't be surprised because they released some really good information over the last 6 or so months from their magazine, which is amazing. We're out of focus. There we go. Amazing. It has some information in there about the characters. It just dropped a few days ago. We know that this movie, the approach to this movie and the way that Rian Johnson handles characters in his interview is the whole reason they're giving him a trilogy, which gives us very high hopes for the future of Star Wars and of The Last Jedi, because there's always that little bit, weariness going into a new movie that you bring it all the way up to here, and eventually it just turns out to be, just below that. But I think it's going to very much exceed our expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because Star Wars rocks.
Because Star Wars.
We got a new issue of the Darth Vader comic.
Ooh, yeah. Issue
number 8. Excellent series about his first year as Darth Vader. We don't want to go into spoilers for this, except for 2 things it showed that were of exceptional importance. They showed for the first time what he sees when he meditates in his Sith meditation.
Yeah, it's the first time we see what any Sith sees during meditation.
Oh, and it's good. And it kind of gives us an insight into him as a character. To kind of give you a description, we'll probably post a photo of it here, but essentially he's meditating over a very crazy sea, lots of lightning in the background, speculation that's that Palpatine's control over him with his suit is the lightning, because they can essentially kill him. Red,
lots of
sky,
very Mustafar light.
Yeah, Mustafar look. He's got lots of dark swirling energy, except in his limbs, of course.
Except for his limbs that he doesn't have.
Which aren't a part of him, of course. No face, except for red eyes. And the most important part is in the background, there's tiny blue butterflies that are just periodically floating around. Which, they don't describe what it is. There's no words. It's all visual. Of course, the idea is that that's his light side that still exists within him. You can see like tentacles of Darkseid kind of coming out. One of them kind of looks like reaching around one of the butterflies. It could be A, that he's trying to destroy it, or B, he's trying to hold on to it.
Hold on to it, yeah. He can't quite get it.
The second thing that's in this comic is the Jedi library, the keeper of the library. I can't remember her name. We'll post it here. She goes back after the fall, so it's being occupied by the Empire at this point, to retrieve a little device that has a list of all known Force-sensitive people in the galaxy. They're known by the Jedi. Also in that scene, there's some Sith artifacts in some cases that we later see in the Lando Calrissian comics in Emperor Palpatine's possession. So we know that the Empire gets into this room and gets the artifacts. And that in and of itself, while maybe not contributing so much to the story, I mean, it may, but it may not. The idea that continuity, which is always fun, but that they have these ancient artifacts that we don't really get to see a whole lot of in canon so much, especially getting into The Last Jedi, when we are going to see like Kylo's lightsabers and ancient design. The Knights of Ren are supposed searchers of Sith artifacts, which we'll get into a little more detail when we talk about
Palpatine himself was very much into searching out those Sith artifacts.
So the power that they hold is really not known to us fully, which is again a nice segue into future movies. So this one's fun. A man who won an auction, he gave $10,000 to a charity, and he won the plot of Episode 9.
That would be like the greatest prize ever.
It'd be the greatest prize and the worst prize. I mean,
yeah.
So J.J. Abrams whispered it into his ear, while Gilbert Gottfried also whispered like the spoilers for a Sharknado movie or something. And then the director of Hot Tub Time Machine talked about Hot Tub Time Machine 3 or something ridiculous.
My gosh.
So I mean, he probably didn't hear it very clearly, but the idea to know what they're gonna do with
I don't even know what I would do with that kind of power.
I don't know. I mean, you spend $10,000 to get it. I'm sure someone would pay more to get it from you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's a good investment.
I'd sell it.
Get on Reddit.
Yes.
Auction my brain off.
Just that, not the whole brain.
Right. Just the important part.
Story.
Just the important part.
Yeah.
Episode 9.
That's the only part that matters.
Yeah. I would see it most as a blessing and a curse to have that kind of information.
I can see that.
There's so much fun in speculation and the build up to something.
Yeah.
And Episode 9 is 18 months away.
That's a long time to hold on to that.
No, it's 2 years away from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because they pushed it back when J.J. Abrams came on. 18 months after the Solo movie dropped. That's 2 years having that knowledge. Of course, they can probably change it, but they probably wouldn't. I feel like they would have the story now.
Yeah, it's too late for that.
Oh, but to have it would...
It gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
We're not at all involved, and we're like anxious for this gentleman. How could he have that?
I don't even know how you walk around like that.
I feel like we're going to read a news story one week where he's kidnapped and held for like ransom in some Romanian
it's not
village.
It's not going to be us.
Definitely not us in our new basement studio.
You guys should see what this is like.
We will post it on our Instagram, which is here. Boop. That's pretty much it. There hasn't, again, been very much news this week. We're getting so close to Last Jedi. Not too surprising that things are relatively slow on the news front. Of course, lots of spoiler stuff is dropping in Reddit and on YouTube and stuff, which, again, it's just not fun.
Yeah,
it's like, why do that to yourself? Why you want to
ruin the movie?
Going into it with ideas and getting to spend weeks and months and years thinking about it, that's the fun. To have the answers.
Doing stuff like this.
Having the answers. Come on, people.
That's boring.
You're better than that. Just be a little patient. But
it's so worth it.
I guess for the views. I mean, we could get spoilers. We're not going to do that to
we're not going to do that to you.
We won't do it to us. We don't want to do it to you as a viewer. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
I mean, we have our spoiler stamp if anything comes up.
And most of it's just rumor we heard like 2 years ago.
Right, yeah. Probably not actually spoilers anymore.
It has nothing to do with anything. Luke is Sith. I heard from a source 2 years ago. He's not Sith.
Kylo is reincarnated Yoda.
Dude. How come we haven't explored that avenue?
Spoiler!
Spoiler, he's Yoda. Well, that was the news. Let's get into the Snoke Theory. So the Snoke Theory is an interesting one. Because, one, there's very little facts about Snoke to build off of. I think altogether we came up with 5 or 6 that are facts about him, which makes creating a theory rather difficult. Which is good, though.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to speculate, as we said, but when you're trying to create a story going into something, and a lot of people don't do this, they just like to be surprised, but we can't help but explore.
It's just what we do.
It's what we do. Then we get to bring it to you fine people. Working with the very few limited information we have, it makes it difficult, but that also makes it very fun, and it makes Snoke probably one of my favorite characters going into Last Jedi.
Yeah, mine too, for sure.
So we're going to go over some facts about him, which may not explain everything about him, and some of it is loose, making connections when some people said something about another character that would apply to Snoke. And then we're going to go over our theory, the Snoke theory that we created.
It's probably my favorite theory.
It's pretty good, I will admit. And we did a lot of research, of course. There's a lot of differing opinions about who he is. And this is our best assessment of all of those theories kind of combined into one. That makes a more cohesive story and ties in with what we know going into Last Jedi. And of course, could all be totally wrong.
Oh yeah, we could be so far off.
So off.
But that's okay, because that's
hopefully you enjoy our theory. Yeah. Let's get into some of these facts about Snoke.
First,
fact 1:
not a Sith.
Not a Sith. Now we've always contended that he's not a Sith. That Kylo Ren is not a Sith.
Correct.
That Luke Skywalker is not a Sith. That
Rey,
maybe. That Rey is not a Sith. And one of the main points that kind of leads us into this is, one, the rule of 2 matters still in the storytelling, and to just negate it all of a sudden is bad storytelling. But we do know that in an article that for Empire, J.J. Abrams, quote, "Kylo Ren is not a Sith. He works under Supreme Leader Snoke, who is a powerful figure on the dark side of the Force." And he goes on to say that there were no Sith in The Force Awakens. And Kylo and Snoke and Luke and Rey were all in The Force Awakens. Thus, we have to say that they're not Sith.
The Sith are pretty much just, they're gone.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's more than the Sith who use the dark side of the Force. I mean, we see it in all sorts of canon materials. Right. Even think of the Clone Wars. The Night Sisters, is that what they're called? Something like that. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But there are Force users in the galaxy who tap into the dark side of the Force who are not Sith.
Well, I mean, Snoke and Kylo.
And Snoke and Kylo are good examples. And just because it's the red lightsaber thing and the Vader mask. And it's very confusing. But it's important in the future of Star Wars that we get away from the Jedi-Sith mentality. Because it's going to allow...
so much more.
There's so much more. And the galaxy needs to open up and let in these ideas a little bit more, which is what we hope to see in The Last Jedi. Point 2. He is a new character.
Not reincarnation of the youngling.
The youngling.
Or who else did I see? Plagueis, Nihilus, the Palpatine,
Mace Windu.
I mean, I've seen him be the reincarnation of just about every great Sith that's ever lived.
Yeah. And one, so boring.
That would be boring. That would be like, oh, let's make him reincarnation of Nihilus, and let's make Rey a Skywalker.
Yeah, just boring storytelling. And not just that. There is no precedent set for reincarnation that they would have to do so much backstory explaining. It would just be a Snoke movie. Yeah. Right? And you get some ideas with Project Resurrection from the Aftermath series and stuff like that, but not the same thing. And we'll explain why. We know that he's a new character, not likely reincarnation, because Andy Serkis, who plays him, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, said that he's a new character in this universe, very much a newly introduced character. So the idea that he's someone else just in a new body just doesn't really work with the storytelling. Point number 3, Palpatine likely knew of him. We get this from the Star Wars Aftermath. I guess this is kind of a spoiler moment if you haven't read the books. Yeah. The book is Star Wars Aftermath, Empire's End, which is the 3rd book in the series, in which it says, before Palpatine's demise at the hands of the rebels, the computers finished their calculations. He set out little secret kind of like probes to try and get information on the uncharted parts of the galaxy, because he felt a force out there. And the whole contingency plan, you should definitely read the books.
Absolutely, yeah.
That way you kind of get some context. But essentially he was trying to get out into the parts of the galaxy that no one knew about because he felt this mysterious force. The computers finished their calculations, finally finding a way through the unknown. The Emperor was convinced that something waited for him out there, some origin of the Force, some dark presence formed of malevolent substance. The Emperor called it a signal, conveniently one that only he could hear. Even his greatest enforcer, Vader, seemed oblivious to it.
And there's speculation that Vader was completely oblivious to it because of his ties to the light side. Like, it was still within him, and so it made it harder for him to be able to sense that darkness that was out there. And like Palpatine, it was just pure evil.
And Palpatine had a certain connection with the Force. And again, we get into like the mythical side of the Force. That cosmic Vader, force. The cosmic force, there's living force, cosmic force, and we'll have another podcast when we discuss the Force. What is the Force? But imagine 2 separate forces. Living force is the one that can be tapped into by controlled by Force users, people sensitive. The one that's in all living things that Yoda talks about in Empire. It's pretty much the force that's penetrated the veil between the reality of the galaxy and then the cosmic force, which is best to be described as kind of like a god, essentially.
The spiritual side of the force. Not so much what you see, but what you feel.
The pure force. Like all force. No light side, dark side, middle kind of shit. It's 100% all of the force. His connection, Palpatine's connection to it was much stronger. He focused a lot more on it. And so his ability to kind of pick up on those little nuances in the galaxy would trump Vader's just in general. But Vader's pull light side is speculated to be a reason why he wasn't able to tap into the supreme darkness that is the Snoke energy that he was putting out. And we'll get into a little more details about what that means in a minute. But it is important because Palpatine is going to play a part in The Last Jedi, at least because we believe he's the grandfather or something of the like of Rey. So having him in there is going to be important.
Absolutely.
Point 4, we know that he is older than the Empire. So he can't be... there's some characters from the books that people are saying that Snoke is, which he can't be because he's too old. We get this from the book version of The Force Awakens. He's talking Kylo. He says, Kylo Ren, I watched the Galactic Empire rise and then fall. The gullible prattle on about the triumph of truth and justice, as of individualism and free will, as if such things are solid and real instead of simple subjective judgments. The historians have it all wrong. It was neither poor strategy nor arrogance that brought down the Empire. You know too well what did. He's discussing with Kylo and Vader's fall. He would consider a fall back to the light side.
And I read that he is very possibly not talking about the Galactic Empire, but the Sith Empire from way before. Like, he saw the rise and the fall of that empire. So he's not even referring to the Galactic Empire. Much older.
That's interesting. Sith Empire kind of plays into our theory a little bit, so it makes sense. Snoke had other apprentices, point 5. We get this from the Visual Dictionary, or the Visual Encyclopedia, Star Wars, the Visual Encyclopedia, in which it says, Snoke is a leader of the First Order. He's aligned with the dark side of the Force and encouraged Kylo Ren, his most promising apprentice, to utilize both the light and the dark sides of the Force to his advantage. Now, of course, this could be simple wordplay. You know how these things tend to go. But again, you know Disney is very particular about what they put out there.
They choose their words very, very carefully, and saying most promising apprentice would imply that there were other least promising apprentices. But who were they? Because I couldn't find anything.
One theory I read was that the Knights of Ren were all his apprentice, and that's why Kylo's the leader, because he's the most promising, the strongest of them. It'd be interesting if they're all Force sensitive. I feel like they aren't.
Yeah, I don't feel
Especially
like... I feel like Kylo is probably the only one of them that is, which makes it easier for him to control them. Yeah. To be the leader. Cause...
I mean, it could be argued that because we know Kylo was being manipulated as Ben long before he brought down that new Jedi Order, that he was recruiting from within. It's a possibility. But I think that in one of the novelizations or something, it talks about him joining the Knights of Ren, and they're already formed.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't really work.
They had been formed for a while. Yeah. And he was pretty young still.
There's something, I don't have the details, something about when the Empire fell, there's a group that went out into the unknown regions, and that ended up becoming the Knights of Ren. Who knows? But him having other apprentices could harken back to his being ancient.
Right.
So we don't know. Point 6. He has Force powers. Now, we get this from Star Wars, absolutely everything you need to know, the updated and expanded, in which it says, among Snoke's many frightening powers are telepathy and Force chokes and throws. We're going to get into another Force ability we think he has, Force draining, which is a very important part of the theory. But the fact that they say Force chokes obviously implies Force sensitivity. Again, very particular about their wording, which is going to be important. How he uses those, we don't really know. I mean, we see it in the trailer that he's lifting Rey in some way. We think that he's pulling her Force energy from her in that particular scene. Which is why she looks so tormented and tortured, which is going to be important in the overall theory. But we know he's weak.
Yeah.
We believe that he has such powerful guards because he isn't in tune with the Force fully yet, which is important in the theory. But the fact that he has Force powers means that he can't be like a random Empire guy who turns dark side. You know, he has to be something more.
Very much.
So our theory of Snoke is pretty much a combination of research, information from other Star Wars creators, essentially. But most of it, we believe it is our own, and we want a little bit of credit for that. But we do appreciate all the information that we got from other sources. But essentially, it starts with one very important point, that Snoke is ancient. We're talking ancient.
Beginning of times, book Genesis.
There's a lot of biblical references, which of course we see in the original trilogy. And I think it's going to carry forward because we lost it. Well,
we kind of lost it in the prequels a little bit, and they kind of started getting more into a scientific side of the Force rather than...
Midichlorians, baby.
Yeah. Rather than just letting the Force flow, which they really brought back in Rogue One and talking about the free flowing of the Force, and it made it feel more of a spiritual thing, which I kind of like a lot better.
Yeah. So that's the very important starting point of who Snoke is. He's ancient, before time. We believe a will.
Absolutely. I am so on board with this theory.
It's an excellent theory.
With it.
So it's best to imagine the will as beings that exist in the cosmic force. They don't exist in our realm. We're in Star Wars too.
We are in the physical side of Star Wars.
So there's the physical side and there's the cosmic side. So they exist within the cosmic side. Now Snoke, this is almost like a Lord of the Rings Silmarillion reference. Snoke wanted more. He felt that he could do more. He was probably eager to have power over other beings.
Greedy.
So there was a point where he did something. Either A, started manipulating the Force in the physical realm. As we talked about in episode 1, the twins at the tree. Yep. He could have initially introduced them to the Force. Or maybe the Wills were all part of manipulating the Force in the physical realm, and he was the one who instigated the use of the dark side by those in the physical realm.
Yeah, because with the Wills, there's no light side or dark side. There's just the Force.
The Force.
They control the living Force, live in the cosmic realm, and he very well, through all of this, could have gotten a little taste for that dark side and just wanted more.
Yeah.
And they are considered to be the most powerful beings in the history of Star Wars.
Well, they're essentially Force.
They are the Force itself. So yeah, he could have gotten a little taste of that dark side and wanted more power, and they're really good at just the immortality thing, and he wanted that, but maybe he wanted it more so in the physical side, like in the living Force, and rather than in the cosmic.
Because he can't control other wills.
No.
But he could control physical beings that use the Force, because
you and me.
Yeah, they're limited in their ability to harness the Force. So him being the Force, giving power, is like a god, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
And this very likely really upset the other wills, leading to his banishment. Now, his banishment resulted in him having a physical form. Now, we don't know, and the Black Kyber Crystal may play a role in this, but we don't know his connection now to the cosmic Force.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
It's theorized it's just as strong. He can destroy planets with his mind and stuff, but we don't know for sure. He's obviously very weak now, so he couldn't do that now, but that's because of his physical force, his physical form. So because he has a physical form, he can die. And a will...
He needs something to sustain that life.
A will would not want to die. So he has to find a way to live forever through his physical form. And we believe that that was him adopting his Force drain powers, in which he pulls the Force from dark side users.
Yes, because the dark side Force is so much more powerful to him, and that's what he wants. It's what he needs.
He needs to have the ability to use that anger and rage and all that power, that raw power, to sustain himself in this current form. Now, it was very likely he had plenty of Force batteries, essentially, during the Sith conflict, because there was tons of dark side users. They were all... He was probably manipulating behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
The
Sith were so much more plentiful back then.
So he had a constant supply of this dark side energy. And he probably needed it pretty much like an IV.
Yes.
Of dark side energy.
Constant.
But then the fall of the Sith occur. The rule of 2 is enacted, which means that the Sith go into hiding, essentially. And what he used for his sustainability of life vanished. Almost instantaneously. So this very much scared him. And without the dark side batteries, what was the term we heard that was really good? Force vampire.
Yes, that's it.
Without him being able to pull that Force from people, he had to do something. So he likely went into hibernation. Probably kept alive on the physical side, while his Force connection probably drained.
Basically, he hooked himself up to a life support system. So that
in the far reaches of the unknown galaxy, to just maintain life.
Just waiting for his opportunity.
Yeah. And then it came. Order 66. Huge burst of energy, Force energy into the galaxy.
Thousands of Jedi killed all at once.
Like that.
That energy is going to go somewhere. It just explodes into the galaxy.
I mean, we know that it was enough for Yoda, who has so few attachments, to
damn near crippled him.
Just insane amounts of energy. This energy likely zapped Snoke back from that precipice of death. And through the use of his technology, he then begins to start to regain power. So it's probably enough to just give him life to find a way to get better. Because he probably hadn't seen that level of force release in 1,000 years.
And this could be where the Knights of Ren come in.
Right.
He could have very well sent them out to find little tiny AAA batteries through artifacts, Sith relics,
with
things like that.
Dark side energies in them.
Yep.
The black kyber crystal could be like his connection to the cosmic force that he can pull a little bit from to just keep alive, essentially. And we know he's just barely alive.
Yeah. Which is why, I mean, he can't go anywhere in his physical form is the hologram. Because he just can't. He probably can't even get up off that chair.
Right. And there's some toys that are coming out, and then some images from one of the trailers.
Can we put it?
Yeah, we'll put an image here. That is believed to be one of two things. One, like a rechargeable battery that he uses to pull out the force of people, but more likely it's a life support system that connects to his throne that keeps him alive. And he's being kept alive because he's awaiting a dark side user powerful enough to pretty much reset him in his full power.
And we're talking huge dark side power. Yeah. Not just like the little bit of dark side from Kylo or the little bit of dark side that might be in the Skywalker, Luke or anything. We're talking immense dark side. Someone incredibly powerful.
So we believe Palpatine could have been as powerful, but he likely... Because if we go back to what we're talking about with Palpatine feeling the Force in the unknown regions, he was likely calling to Palpatine to get him out there. But Palpatine,
there was no dark side Force as great as or greater than Palpatine for a long time.
But then Palpatine goes off and gets himself thrown down a pit, and he loses that user. And then along comes Rey. And if you've watched the most recent trailer, TV spot that came out, we can see that something is calling to Rey. She's meditating. Luke is guiding her. She says she senses something else and it's calling to her. And Luke is saying, don't give in. Don't give in. And he's like yelling for her to come back. So we believe that that's Snoke calling out to her, trying to harness that dark side energy. Because if he can push her to it, he can pull that from her and pretty much be Snoke at his most powerful point.
Yes.
Powerful enough to start to create essentially a Sith Empire again, so he has constant access to the dark side energy. Now, this can also tie into Plagueis. With his search for immortality, he might have learned of Snoke's abilities, learned of the cost, and refused to teach Palpatine.
Yeah, because never even used it himself.
Right, because he's Palpatine the Wise.
Yeah.
He knows better.
He's not an idiot.
Right. Palpatine kills him. So Palpatine ties into the story really well. So there's a lot of Palpatine in it, which again goes back to the Rey Palpatine theory. But he died too soon. But we get a second chance with Rey. He's kept just alive by sending out, because we've heard, possible spoiler, that the Knights of Ren are searching the galaxy for Sith artifacts, which would contain dark side energy that he's pulling from.
Yeah, they're like little AAA batteries.
Yeah, little.
Just a little taste, boost. Just enough to keep him up there.
So he is just waiting, and we also know that he can kind of pinpoint Force users. So his connection to the cosmic Force is probably still
probably
very strong.
Pretty strong. Yeah, I mean,
there's an instance in Bloodlines where he kind of reaching out to Ben while he's still in Leia before she gives birth, and Leia has a dream about this dark side Force from the unknown regions kind of talking to her, and Ben kicks. So we know that he may have been searching for that dark side through Ben.
And I read on the whole Ben Kylo thing, the reason Snoke doesn't just use him and drain his dark side power is because there's too much light side inside Kylo. Snoke can't do anything with the light side Force. It's useless to him.
Right.
Which is why he's still alive. So he's just using him as his pawn to get what he wants.
Because again, he's weak, so he needs someone strong enough to be able to bring Rey to him. but he's not so strong that he can use Kylo.
Yeah, like he's probably just gonna get Rey and then do away with Kylo. He's useless to him.
Right. And Han Solo says this, that Kylo, once he gets Snoke gets use from him, he's gonna kill him.
Yeah.
So Snoke is pretty much trying to manipulate Rey to fall to the dark side, to pull her energy. He doesn't want Rey at his side. He needs Rey to regain his power. It may be a point of transcendence. Maybe he pulls the power from Rey and he's able to have enough power to become a will again on the cosmic side of things.
Maybe. I don't think that the other wills, like, I don't think, like, once you're banished that you can go back to that. Especially if you're as dark as he is. Like, he's incredibly powerful, but there are 5 wills, so there's 4 left. 4 of them versus 1 of him. I don't know. If they are the embodiment of Force itself.
It could be that he gains enough power to rip a hole between the veil.
Oh, that would be
able
cool.
to try to gain that power again through them.
That
Who
could
knows?
be interesting. Yeah, it's hard to say.
The biggest thing is it has to be something so powerful that he doesn't need to resort to pulling dark powers. Unless he tries to rebuild the Sith Empire, which I don't really see them going. Maybe, but...
I don't know. I feel like he's always going to have to drain that power in order to live. Because he was this celestial being, basically. Fell from grace. You're just a meat sack, you know?
Yeah.
He needs something to sustain him.
I definitely think it's a strong possibility. But the key is the wills. We know that Luke was likely searching for the Journal of the Wills, so he probably has an idea of who Snoke is because of his research. The cosmic force push that we're seeing in the movies and the books. The idea that he's old and that he needs dark side energy. Because if not, he probably wouldn't have killed the Jedi. Had Kylo kill all the students, he would have had them captured and pulled the light side from him.
Yeah, he doesn't need them.
Right. They don't give him what he needs. He needs the dark side, which is why we think he needs only dark side, because he would have used the children. He likely would have tried to capture Luke and not kill him.
Yep.
Because Luke would have tons of light side energy.
Yeah, but he can't use that. But Luke is incredibly powerful, which I think at Snoke at his current state, that makes him nervous.
Right. And of course, there's some pitfalls to the idea. What does he do after he pulls the energy from Rey? Which we'll probably get into. Right?
Cthulhu style or something.
Maybe he keeps her alive in a tank. And just to regain her power, and then he pulls it in again. And he's just using her as a rechargeable
she would
battery.
Be the new IV bag.
There you go. We figured it out.
We figured it out.
Who else knows about this? So why was Rey left on Jakku? Likely to hide her from Snoke. But who would know? Really, it only comes down to Luke. So did Luke know her parents and told them to hide her on Jakku?
It's possible.
I mean, that's where it starts to get really tricky, because we know that she's left there likely to be
if we just knew who put her on Jakku and why, we could answer every question and start. It always comes back to that.
Yeah. We know that Kylo's not strong enough, but why? Again, we think it's because he has too much light in him.
In him.
We can see that even in the trailers. The pull to light side is very strong. Again, we go back to the mothers.
Yeah.
And Rey, like I said, likely has her mother still alive, which will probably keep her from going full dark side. But his pull just doesn't allow him to have the power. Because, the Skywalkers are still very powerful, but not like the Palpatines.
No,
it's just not the same.
Close, no.
And we know that Palpatine, at least in Legends, doesn't have light side in him. He's just all dark. He's just an evil character, which is great, especially for the whole Snoke theory. But in the end, who he is going to play not only just a role in this trilogy, but it's likely going to give us a lot of stuff to go back when the new trilogy is created.
It gives us lots of new material to see the movies go forward in a pleasant way. Yeah,
and it's going to be important to kind of mitigate the whole biological aspect of the Force, to give us more to work with, gives us more to see in the future. It really gives us the opportunity to create a universe and that goes into many different directions, that can move beyond Jedi Sith.
Yeah.
And that
it's an easy line for the casual viewer to follow.
Right.
We have to keep in mind that not everybody sits around and reads and watches Star Wars info until they can't see straight.
Right. So you have the Journal of the Wills, which leads to Luke talking about Snoke. And we know from Rian Johnson that Snoke's full backstory is not gone into in The Last Jedi. But we will learn at least the information we need for when the next movie comes out, that we don't have to do a full backtrace.
Right.
So it's very likely Luke will at least give us some information on who Snoke is, or at least what Snoke is, which we look very forward to. Again, we're just 3 weeks out.
So I just
close.
can't wait.
Again, we'll be we'll be bringing a live show after. Quick little synopsis of what we learned. We'll probably be super pumped, so get ready for that.
Either thumbs up or you'll see fire in the background. It's going to one of two ways.
It only goes one of two ways. We appreciate you watching our show. Give us a like. Give us a comment. What you think Snoke is. Subscribe, please. You can follow us on social media. We have Twitter here, and we have Instagram here. We'd love to hear your feedback. We love doing this. We love interacting with you guys. It's a lot of fun for us. Hopefully it's a lot of fun for you.
Share the knowledge.
Just love Star Wars, people. Just fun. Thanks so much. I hate this not focusing. The black is like throwing it off a bit.
Like it'll focus, but it won't stay.